And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, back to another episode of Grade Fantasy where I shall preview what are my top plays for the Week 10 FanDuel slate at the tight end and defensive special teams positions. Let's get right into it. As I prep this, here we go. Tight ends, and we are off. And we are off in the right spot too, because whether you get a Debo Samuel back, it's a great matchup for George Kittle. It's an even better matchup if Debo is not cleared. So against Tampa Bay, one of the worst bottom five teams against the tight end position, Kittle tends to, he does get overshadowed because he is a complete tight end. When it comes to that, what was known as the big three before, as in him, Kelsey, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is good, but I think Kittle is definitely the better blocker, the entire package for what he can do. Now, with the great match that he has against the Buccaneers, before that, obviously you see last week, a lot of volume going to him, a couple of big plays for 120 and a touchdown. Even before that, with the Ayuk injury, he has 7 with Debo in the lineup, 6, 12, 8, 5. So he has the upside there. And literally, tight end's been crap, but after the first week, he's been quietly the probably most. I thought it was really Bowers or whatever, but as you see by these numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, with the bye week, he's more consistent and a bigger boom than Bowers. So you definitely have to like the upside here on Kittle. Ceiling booming if anything, there's no Debo. So already his upside looks good with no Ayuk around, but Kittle without a doubt deserves the 8,000 price. I will definitely be getting to him. Other top players this week, I do like Trey McBride against the Jets, even though it's not the best matchup. Literally, with that defense, I think, if anything, how you attack Kansas City, it has been shown during the season, ever since week 1. Tight ends do seem to at least bust out against Kansas City. He has a couple of dud games back and forth, but as you can see, the consistency is starting to come up. Within the last 4 weeks, has 3 double-digit games, ranking from 11.2 all the way up to damn near 20, with a 7.6 dud in there. Now, not getting in the end zone, it sucks, but the volume is there. He is basically the main man that they got there. So I like the Trey McBride price, especially that you could save basically $800 from Kittle. Then, of course, the way the KC offense, is looking. Yes, tough match against Denver, division rivals, but Kelsey normally does have good games. He doesn't blow up on the Broncos like lately, like how he would do against like a San Diego or the Raiders. But Kelsey now being more opened up in the middle, even though they have some injuries to their wide receiver core, DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy are opening up the middle for Travis Kelsey. Within the last couple of weeks, he's starting to kind of look like old Travis again after a very poor, mediocre start. As you can see in the last 2 weeks, 20 fantasy points, 18 fantasy points. And now that the offense is looking good, 7,000 is right now a bargain for Travis Kelsey. Travis Kelsey has 28 targets. Forget the stats and the numbers. Travis Kelsey has 28 targets in the last 2 weeks. Even if he didn't do much with it, 28 targets in 2 weeks means he's bound for at least another 10 to 12 targets this coming week. And with maybe a dinged up Kareem Hunt, maybe there's a little bit more play action work for the short game, and that helps Kelsey open up and with the run after the catch. Cade Otton seems to be he's probably going to end up the most popular play. He has definitely shown that he can handle the workload with no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans. Basically, the last 3 weeks, he's basically been the tight end one basically in the last 3 weeks. 8 for 100 for 17, 9 for 81, 2 touchdowns for 24.6, 11 for 877 with 1 TD, 17.7. So there's no wonder why he's definitely going to be popular in GPPs. He's being recognized as this week's top cash tight end. So You gotta love Kate Otten, and obviously in this game they'll most likely be playing from behind. So Kate Otten's opportunities will definitely he might see like right here around here this 10 or whatever. No, like what he did in like week 2 and 3 over here. This looks like what the floor can be, and then the ceiling could be a few more targets above that. So he could have his first double-digit reception day. It could happen. 8 and 9 last 2 games. No, 8, 9, and 8 the last 3 games. So especially behind with the game script, he looked like he could get double-digit receptions and even more targets. Taysom Hill definitely. It was fun playing him last week. I enjoyed using him last week, and he got the touchdown, receiving, and everything. But Saints are falling apart. He's still a wild card. He's just not a cheap wild card. He went up about $400, so take that for what you will. Evan Ingram looks like a good play because I think that's another thing where they'll be. I think Evan Ingram should be able to get into the flat off the blitzes, so I think the targets will look like last week. I just think he'll probably, in that situation, do a better job with the targets. Philly, he got targeted 10 times but only had 5 for 45. I think that could be a little bit better, and at 62, you need a decent game, not a crazy game. Dalton Kincaid is in a good matchup. Like I said, Indianapolis defense is nothing to be scared of. He hasn't really performed that well like how last year. So if you're going Kincaid, that is definitely more of a low. That's definitely going to be a more low ownership option there, and at a good price at $6,000. Dallas got it cleared off injury. It's just a case of does he get gobbled up by his other supporting cash and the tush push? But Dallas got it is a solid option there. That's probably another low owned GPP play. Kyle Pitts, the volume has finally started to come up. Definitely got to like that in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, before last week, getting the 5, the 8, and the 9 targets and everything. So, but he's getting into the end zone as well. So, 23, I think he's working on 3 of his last 4 weeks, going double digits. And in one of those 4-week games, his score was 8.3. It hurts you. It didn't kill you, because Kyle Pitts has not been priced like a major talent in a while since earlier this year. He's 5,700, so it's definitely a buy low, low risk kind of option there, but also got to check to see what's going on with his hamstring. You got to kind of like Jawan Johnson always, tight end threat, TD threat, goal line threat, 5,300. Nothing wrong with that there. Pat Fryermuth is a solid option too at 52. You got like Tyler Conklin. He's been picking it up more even with the new acquisitions. He does get the goal line looks. In the last 3 weeks, he has a touchdown in each week. Doesn't get much targets, but he does get looked in the red zone. So you gotta look out for that. Other than that, Zach Ertz is interesting, and I don't really like anything down here. So I think it's safe to say we can go to the defenses. So let's get this back all the way up here. We do have a slightly overpriced defense, but for good reason. There's nobody going to be there for Dallas. Once again, the running game is pitiful. I think even at Dallas, Philly should be able to tee off and maybe get some sacks, interceptions on whoever's going to be quarterbacking, whether it's Cooper Rush, whoever the case may be. This is right here. Now, this is not like how last week when you had a 52 defense and I was like, wait, this is not the team that you was expecting to see. Being a $100 defense, I actually like this with the way Dallas has been playing too. This is where Philly in the division game, I understand division games can be funny, but this is where I think Philly smells blood, and they need to just, like I said, they just need to put these guys away, and then Washington and Philly just need to battle out for because this is one of those where it definitely already at this point in the season will put Dallas on the brink of playoff elimination, or at least close to it already. Chicago in a nice matchup. Like I said, they can get the Drake man. I think that defense is slightly overrated, but it is good. Like I said, the Patriots not the best offense in the world, but Chicago's defense I think is slightly overrated. They can be run on. Is making smart plays. So he might be able to challenge Chicago a bit, maybe get some scores and move the ball. The question is, can Chicago make Derek May make some mistakes? That's how you get the fantasy points. They're at the flat regular optimal of 5,000. Minnesota at Jacksonville. When it comes to this, I actually like the Minnesota at Jacksonville matchup. Two banged up running backs. It's a basically simple system, but it is interesting because where you beat the Vikings at, it is the deep ball, and which is why many stacks of Brian Thomas. And as I said in the tight end segment, if he could get out on the flat and beat the blitz and be in the right pocket space for Trevor Lawrence, they could matriculate the ball, make Minnesota get burned by blitz and Trevor Lawrence. But he has to see it, has to run it. Trevor Lawrence obviously downgraded this year, but not a bad pay-up option. I do not dislike any of these pay-up options so far. I actually do like. It's very rare that I do like. It's very rare that I do like the overpriced defense, but there is precedent for picking Philly or whatever. It does take a nice chunk of your salary, even though they're mostly going to be cheaper than most offensive players that you pick this week. But as we'll go down, we'll like to see what we can have. The Chargers have been playing well as of late against Tennessee. That definitely looks viable. They haven't given up 20 points since I think Pittsburgh about 5 weeks ago in week 4. And in the last 2 weeks, they're starting to get pressure. Bosa's healthy. That front seven's attacking, so they got 11 sacks. So with that being said, they have a pretty good shot at duplicating that at 4,800. As we keep going, when it comes to top play, I definitely like Kansas City at 4,500 at home against Denver. I think San Francisco, even though they're on the road, they're interesting. Like I said, San Francisco is also kind of like Minnesota. You can run on them a bit, stinge your defense with Minnesota, but you can pass the ball. You protect against the blitz against Warner, Bosa, and the rest of those guys. You can pick off San Francisco, but I really think this is a talent. I think with Tampa Bay, what it is that ever since the injury, this is the toughest defense that they've played. Because the last 2 weeks, they had KC last week, so it was a great job by Baker. Baker only had 200, so you got to be able to push the ball and, score to knock down these defenses. But when it comes to what they have this week, I think Baker can handle it, but I think the 49ers should be able to make some mistakes. And, like I said, Baker's had a great year, and he's doing a lot with a little. But when it comes to fantasy and being able to, and he has to be able to score some points to knock their point down, and we're talking about San Francisco being at 4,400. Yeah, I don't think he's going to make you regret paying for a $4,400 defense even on the road, so I do like them. Atlanta at New Orleans, you have to take a chance at that. New Orleans is playing horrible football right now. 4,300, there's nothing wrong with that. They're just not at home, but it's still in the dome, so still familiar territory to both teams. Pittsburgh and Washington should be interesting. That should be a good game. 4,200. Detroit's obviously my favorite mid-range pick with all the injuries going with Houston. So Detroit, even though they're on the road, I kind of like some of the road teams this week, surprisingly. Normally when it comes to fantasy, you're more comfortable with the defense at home and all that other stuff and having the loud crowd affect the snap count and all this other things. But there's quite a few road favorites with good opportunities. They should be able to take advantage of the opportunities that they have with teams banged up and hurt. As we keep scrolling down, hey, you never know. It is a GPP play because you never know if you're going to get a crappy Jets defense. Jets offense. The Jets offense has at least looked better and competent the last 2 weeks. But Arizona, here's the thing you got to understand about Arizona. Even though they're not the best at generating pressure, they do have a couple of boom games this season where they got 5 sacks or more. Week 2 against the Rams, Stafford, and then you just see a bunch of these kind of games or whatever, which is not really doing much. But last week, Chicago, they had 6. So it is capable. And like I said, the Jets offense could, just come out come out in stink mode and everything, and anything is possible. So them against the Jets, and once again, this is a defense at home for 3,700. We look at the Jets as improving. They're not a juggernaut. I don't think the Jets could just launch up 28 to 35 points. Jets still look like they can't get out their own way, but they get a little better. If anything, they could get to Rodgers, hit Rodgers, force Rodgers to make a couple of mistakes, while the Jets still score maybe 21, 24, maybe even 27. I think Arizona could still pull off a 6 to maybe even a 10. I don't know if they get the strip sack fumble or anything like that, but for 3,700, they definitely seem like they can hold their worth. I think also an interesting pick is New England. That defense against now as long as they keep it on the ground, I think Chicago looks good. But if Caleb Williams is back there, you get the good flashes of Caleb, and then you get the bad flashes. And right now, the last couple of weeks, Caleb Williams has not been playing good fantasy or real football. So 3,600, you're hoping, you get the Cincinnati thing was a rare case how banged up they were, but more realistically, and obviously that was Miami with no Tua, you're looking more realistically at a San Francisco kind of performance. You're hoping maybe, even if last week kind of for 3,600 and gets 4 points, maybe Caleb throws some interceptions. He does tend to hold on to it, even though Caleb Williams is a bit mobile. What you like is these young rookie quarterbacks trying to make plays. Caleb Williams, if you have seen, besides blitz packages, gets sacked because he holds on to the ball too long. So those are sacks to be had by New England. That's why with the sacks and everything, I think at 36, they are also viable. I like Washington at Pittsburgh. Washington getting Marcus Lattimore improves against Pittsburgh, so most likely he'll get George Pickens going deep. And the way the front seven is playing, I think they could get to Russell Wilson and make him make some mistakes. We already know what he's capable of, even though he has looked good these last few weeks. Washington can get them. This is actually my favorite. This right here is definitely my favorite low-owned play. Tennessee is interesting. Like I said, the Chargers are improving. They're starting to unleash Justin Herbert, but I don't really trust Tennessee. I really don't like anything down here, to be honest. I really don't. For me personally, I think when it comes to defense, I have to say it like this, when it comes to defense on FanDuel, because of the situation, who they are, and what the pricing is, I think the lowest is 35. Maybe you can go with Tennessee against the Chargers. They do generate some pressure. They have games where they've only been hit with a 30 or over twice all season. Other than that, they're giving up 17, 20, 24, but at the same time, they're getting minor pressure. And like I said, Tennessee's been a cheap defense all year, so they've had scores of 8, 10, 11. So for everybody else, if you want, 3,400 Tennessee. 3,400 Tennessee at the Chargers. Like I said, if a team, beats you or whatever, you hope you get at least a few sacks and some stats, while they only score anywhere from 17 to maybe 24, 27. They are letting Herbert throw the ball more, but the defensive backfield is still horrible in Tennessee. The front seven is improving. That back four, back five nickel package is still very young. So you're hoping for maybe to get some sacks possibly. But once again, he's throwing the ball more in Herbert, but Harbaugh's still pretty much a run-dominant, defensive-dominant coach. So if he could see himself salting the ball away, that's less dropbacks for Herbert. But like I said, Chargers are not a juggernaut. They're not really a threat to go 27-34, whatever the case may be. But then, of course, that also depends on the offensive productivity on the Titans end. But like I said, lowest I'm going is 35. Favorite mid-range, I think I like the Steelers and I like the Lions. When it comes to the pay-up options, I guess once you start getting a pay, you can consider them pay-ups. 4,400. I like Kansas City. I like San Francisco. Buffalo's interesting, but I do like the Chargers at home as well. I like Minnesota. Like I said, the Bears are viable as well. And then, like I said, I think this is the first week where that 5,100 is viable to take. I normally don't like taking the overpriced defenses. Like I said, it has happened over the couple years where I say, hey, this is viable and hey, it works out. That $5,100 defense gets you 13 to 16, maybe 18 points. But, defense is very finicky. It is very weird. That's why in most cases it's safer to pay down. So those are my top plays at tight end and defense. Wide receiver video will be out tomorrow afternoon. A lot of injuries, a lot of confirmations with Friday practices. So I'll be bringing out news by then when it's out and fresh and in full detail. Once again, good luck in week 10. Wide receiver video out tomorrow afternoon. This is Grade A Fantasy signing off.